My name is Professor Zoe Winters, and I've been an honorary professor of breast surgery for the last 8 years at UCL. We're not all at the same risk, so it really makes no sense to say that we should screen all women at the same age or at the same frequency. So if we take the NHS programme, we do presume everybody is at low risk. But that's 27% of the population. And so it's really helpful to know what risk each woman is at and how we achieve that, because that approach is going to allow a personalised screening. It doesn't mean that we're able to screen every woman precisely at that point in time, but at least we commence with very established clinical risk scores. So the NHS does well where you're extremely high risk, but that's 2% of the population, and you're part of a family history clinic. And of course, we understand that testing for a specific gene defect like BRCA1 and 2 was around 25 years ago, but we've moved on in absolute leaps and bounds. So in the NHS, in a high-risk clinic, they may offer you a 5-gene specific defect test. But we know we can do better than that. So we talk about the current modern language, and this has been shown in a major trial called WISDOM. And what does that stand for? Women informed to screen based on measures of risk. You have wisdom as an individual. So it is a risk-adapted, personalised screening, and we know from the American cohort of women that 89% of women prefer this. So what does that mean? In modern parlance, we can perform a preventative gene screening panel. Part of that panel will comprise 9 specific genes, of which you know BRCA1 and 2 well, and that is called a 9 hereditary breast and ovarian cancer gene panel. Now, that's not going to be a common pathway. It may be 2 to 3% of cancers. However, when it is there, if it is either high penetration or moderate, we have actually made a real difference. And we can add that information to a very important factor. And this is pretty low cost, and that's called testing your population risk. And that's something called a polygenic risk score. What does that mean? It means women don't know why they get a spontaneous breast cancer or a colon cancer or a thyroid cancer, or do many people? So we need to educate. It is about multiple little sugar base pairs called the nucleotides within the rungs of the DNA ladder. And because of living, they undergo little changes, and so we can test up to 300 of these. And we do that currently. We refer to a genetic service that does this. There's a slight downside because women have to self-fund this. Providers don't yet cover prevention as we understand it. So low cost and accessibility is important. Once we put in the polygenic risk score alongside specific gene defects, we then inform with known clinical risk factors. So we ask women, age is one of the biggest risk factors for breast cancer. The older you are, the higher your risk. We ask about ethnicity, whether you have ever had a biopsy. It might show increased in cell number but still be benign. It might be atypical cells but still be benign. But these are all factors of importance. Then we will ask about age of first pregnancy, how long you breastfed, whether you've ever taken HRT, whether you've taken the oral contraceptive pill. What is your body mass index? Height and weight is extremely important. We will also ask about your mammographic density. Now, mammographic density is a must-know for women. It's an FDA mandate in America since 2024 to know your density. And so in our reports, density is an intrinsic element of that report. And we talk about it and we share information on this. So women who have a whiter mammogram, which means more breast duct tissue by genetic inheritance, because we all have differences that we inherit about our normal breast genetically, will have a higher risk. It is not the only factor. Each risk contributes small percentage points. So it comes out that we can calculate whether you're at the highest risk elevated, average risk, or low. If you are low risk, we start screening at 50 every 3 years. If you are average risk, we screen you from 40 every 2 years. And if you are in the high percentile or elevated risk, it becomes annual screening from 40. So you can see that this is a risk-adapted approach. At the very high risk, it is annual screening with mammogram and breast MRI from 40 plus. And if you are under 40, it is MRI. Now, what women need to know that's really hot off the press is the results of the BRAID trial, a UK trial from Cambridge. If you have dense breasts and the mammogram says you are a C or D on BIRADS, which is just the British Imaging Reporting and Dataset System, then you may need contrast imaging. That could be a contrast MRI. It could also be a contrast-enhanced mammogram. And I'm very happy to answer questions on that. We provide access to both and we talk about it. We share the results of the BRAID trial and we also help you to understand your imaging report. So when I see women, in the absence of the more complex genetic screening panel, I will do a 9-point clinical risk score based on the Wisdom trial. This gives us a guide. And so I'm not screening all my 40-year-olds annually, which I initially did based on a study called Age X, because obviously in 40-year-olds, we were worried about aggressive cancers and therefore picking them up soon so that we could make a difference and reduce mortality by 10%. So I'm happy to answer any questions or perhaps any other topics that may be important.